Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. And welcome to the extra time segment for Everton 0, Newcastle 2. My goodness, I didn't think I'd be saying that this time yesterday, but here we are. I'm joined by Ian Mills from the Across the Park podcast. A warm welcome, Ian. Good to have you on.
Hi James. I wish I was on in better circumstances, but I've drew the short straw this one, haven't I?
Yeah, I think we were all drawn the short straw after anyone who's decided to do a podcast about mixers going to have certainly drawn the short straw. My goodness, what was all that about? It was just absolutely horrific performance. One of the most embarrassing displays I've seen from Everton, and that's saying something. What went wrong in? Get a bit of insight. What do you think went wrong there?
Well, first, James, I think to start with the positive, I'm shocked that I'm shocked, and that's how far this team have come. That I'm shocked because that performance was Everton Football Club for the past number of years. You could go back,
probably.
You could put a 2 in front of that and go decades. That's a proper Everton performance where they've let us down a number of times, and I wasn't expecting it. Newcastle, to their credit, that was a different Newcastle United. I think the manager realised that he had to change things from their point of view and go at us. They worked very well on the set pieces. They caused us problems a lot of times on set pieces. And even their first goal, you could see their number 16, I forget who that was, he sort of bullied Pickford. Now, maybe one of our outfield players should have came on and helped Pickford there, because it left Pickford so far over, to one side of the goal. I think Newcastle deserve lots of credit. They done really well. From our point of view, James, we've been here before this season. I'm talking Leeds, I'm talking West Ham, I'm talking Burnley. We've always managed to come back.
They were bad games. Yeah. Not as embarrassing as this. These have lost like 7 games on the spin.
Yeah.
We've got to let them win.
No, I agree. And there's not many positives to take from yesterday. I think going forward, we'll talk about Leeds in a minute. I think there has to be changes. And I might shock you by some of the names that I say need to come out. But there's a number of players there who just didn't do enough. There's a man in the middle of the park who may as well be wearing a John Cena t-shirt, who's been there for 4 or 5 years now, and he's got the Morgan Schneiderlins about him for me, and that's Gylfi Sigurdsson. We're having to rely on Gylfi Sigurdsson, similarly to how we had to rely on Morgan Schneiderlin, because there's nobody else. Him and Andre Gomez have played a game this season. You top who can be worse and get dropped for the next game. They've just rotated in and out, them two. And until we address that, we're always going to come up short against teams who've got more fight than us. Leeds done it this season at Goodison Park. Burnley, at large parts of the game at Turf Moor, done it to us. And Newcastle's done it yesterday. The big thing for me is the fight.
At the end of the day, though, this is Everton Football Club. We've been built on a tradition of fighting spirits. Where's that?
It hasn't been there for a while. I think if you take a number of players from our 11, and I'm talking Allen, I'm talking Decore, I think they've got fight. I think 2 players who've got more fight than he was on the pitch yesterday, Ben Godfrey and Mason Holgate. They always look up for a battle.
Definitely, yeah.
I think it was a mistake not playing them two. But then again, when the team came out yesterday, I wasn't on social media ranting and raving. I wasn't upset with the team. I thought it looked quite good on paper, at least enough to beat Newcastle. But we've been let down a number of times by some of these players. And when you strip those first 11 players out, and now we've got a conundrum on top of that, as do we play a flat back 4 or do we play wing backs? The manager now doesn't know what to play. That's evidence, because he's changing it all the time. I think going forward, we might now just see that flat back 4 with the low block, and Luca Dean maybe more of a license to get forwards. And in hindsight, which is a wonderful thing, James, we should have done that yesterday. But you're absolutely right. Yeah. It's Everton Football Club, and we can't expect to watch a game against Newcastle United where we're getting beat. Not only beat, but we're getting outfought. If Newcastle was won on a lucky set piece and their goalkeeper was man of the match, we'd be sitting here saying it's one of those things. But for Newcastle United to be such a terrible team, to come to Goodison Park and outfight Everton, it's really, really embarrassing.
It's an embarrassment. And I'll be honest, there's a number of people I'd like to point fingers at. And I mean, I've been outspoken on the show as a bit of a detractor of this player, but Seamus Coleman is absolutely washed up at Everton, in my opinion. I think shouldn't be captain in the club either. I don't think he's got the leadership qualities needed for that. No,
he's very Marmite, isn't he, Seamus Coleman? Now he's very Marmite, because you've got some fans who are saying what you say, and you've got some fans who are retweeting his text messages to Yannick Bolasie this week and saying what a captain, what a character, and he epitomises Everton Football Club. He is becoming, as he's getting older, very much Marmite.
And like Marmite, it moves very slowly. That's kind of the issue for me, is that he's not got the pace or anything to offer what he used to offer going forwards or tracking back. For me, he's just a very, very mediocre player who's not fit to play at this level anymore.
It's a shame because he was been such a great servant for Everton Football Club. He was, when we had him and Baines on either side, I think you could arguably say they were the best two fullbacks in the league for around 18 to 24 months. They were absolutely brilliant. But I think it needs addressing. You're absolutely right. And I think managers have tried to do that. You look at Jibril Sidibe coming in last year. The idea was that he would replace Seamus Coleman. That didn't work out. We were linked with right backs again in the summer. Not so much this window. I think Seamus Coleman will probably rotate with Mason Holgate up until May. But I think an attacking fullback on the right-hand side who can get up and down with energy and aggression is going to cost a lot of money, but it's got to be something we address in the summer.
We're missing that so badly. But on top of the fact that he's not doing very well as a right back, I also don't think he's doing well as a leader either. Like, where's the leadership in that game yesterday? I mean, is he happy to accept that? I remember he come out with a very big sort of rant, didn't he, after the Wolves game last season, and we got hammered in that game and out for. But if he's serious about what he said after that Wolves game, then he needs to come out and say something like that again, because on what planet is that acceptable? I mean, this is team supposedly turning a corner, and it's gone and done that. And he stood by for 90 minutes and let that happen as captain.
Yeah, but I mean, Seamus Coleman, for me, he showed glimpses of being a better captain when he didn't have the armbands. I'm going back to a game against Chelsea where I think Diego Costa scored and he rubbed it in Seamus Coleman's face, and Tim Howard had to run over because Phil Jagielka wouldn't, and Seamus Coleman had to stick up for himself. There's been times where he's let us down as a captain. I don't think he was very good in the Andre Gomez Son incident where he put his arm around Son opposed to putting his arm around Andre Gomez. He let us down there for me.
I'll be honest,
I don't think he's the best captain.
That was the turning point for me for when the Son incident, when I sort of turned on him like that. But I'll be honest, I just don't think he's got the qualities needed to lead.
He's the best of the bunch that we've got. There's no one else in that team who can captain Everton Football Club. Luca Dean is a magnificent player, but he's not a captain. Gylfi Sigurdsson certainly isn't a captain. I don't think Michael Keane is a captain. I don't think he's angry enough. And this might get comments and this might get laughs. I think the best captain we've had in recent years is Phil Neville. For such a poor player he was a really good captain.
No, he was. He could scream at people.
Yeah.
And I think for me, what upsets me though is that, like, you're captain in Everton Football Club. What an honour that is. You've got to uphold the standards of this club. If someone's not working hard enough, if someone's not, fighting back, you lead by example. You fight back. When have you ever seen James Coleman throw a tackle in?
I mean, it's something that I've been saying on my own podcast and probably to people on Twitter as well. We don't just need one captain. We need a number of them, because there's no point bringing one captain in the summer and then he's injured or he's suspended or, he goes to African nations or whatever, and then you're stuck with what we've got. The leadership at that club hasn't been there for a number of years. You look back to the David Moyes team, there were a number of captains in that team. The Roberto Martinez team sort of changed that dynamic. We've never recovered from that. We've brought characters in who aren't big enough characters to carry the weight of expectation that we as fans want Everton Football Club to be. I'm just old enough to remember some of the good times, so you've got that level of expectancy from people my generation, people older than me, want it all again. And are the characters big enough to accept that? I think some of the new characters maybe are the South Americans. I think the likes of Yerry Mina and James Rodriguez are really big characters, but we shouldn't be looking at South Americans to come into Everton Football Club and lead the football club. They should just be coming into an environment where it's already being led from within. And there's a number of problems mentally at the club that need addressing. It's not just one captain. I think we need 2 or 3 big characters in that dressing room.
Yeah, there's a real lack of character. I think for me the issue was, of course, and this isn't like, I'm not defending the referee, because the referee was poor, very, very poor. But no one was ever getting in the referee's face. No one was. When they put a hard tackle in and the referee allowed them to get away with that, why didn't we do the same to them?
There was a moment where they got Richarlison, wasn't there? Someone got Richarlison, and Yerry Mina went straight over to the player who'd done him. I think it was Jeff Hendrick, and then he went over to the official. But again, it goes back to my earlier point. Why is a South American who's been at the club 3 years the only person on that pitch He was looking after his teammates and trying to get Everton Football Club a decision, because that's what it's all about on the field. You look at, I hate mentioning that lot, but you look at some of their players of the past and currently, they're always doing it. They're always trying to get advantage.
As well. Where was our players getting in the face of the Newcastle players when we put our tackling on Hammers? Everyone should have been riding John Joe Shelby's face as soon as he put that tackle in.
Yeah, I think Newcastle looked at that team yesterday and thought we can win the battle here, and that's
they
that's
saw
the most worrying
because
thing.
These players are not interested, and that's it. Carlos said, didn't he? I think that he'd figured out like where this team's going to finish, and I'm going to say we're going to finish in the bottom half at this rate because, there's teams. The league's very tight, and I mean, bottom half might be harsh on us, but if you don't fight, that's where we're going to end up.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what I said at the start, I think we have bounced back. I mean, this is the worst defeat performance-wise of the season, but I felt just as bad really after the Leeds game. I felt just as bad after the West Ham game, because the big thing for me is now, for the first time since September when the season started, the teams are now starting to break away at the top. It's always been congested until now, and if we don't put points on board on Wednesday, and I'm talking 3 points, then I may agree with you that this European dream is over. But what I'm clinging on to is that we have recovered from these defeats in the past this season. And I hate saying this, I hate putting at other clubs because I don't care about other clubs, but it's happening across the league now. Look at Liverpool getting done by Burnley, Liverpool drawing with West Brom, Sheffield United going to Old Trafford. You're telling me them supporters didn't feel like we feel. This season is a little bit crazy. I'm clinging on to the fact that it's happened to us already and we have bounced back.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I think what upsets me, though, there's more power of recovery in teams that have more characters, and I'm just upset that, James was targeted yesterday by their players, and not one of our other players decides to stick up for him, except for Yerry Mina, maybe, but, no one else decided that they'd scream at the player who nailed one of ours, and you need that. You need that in your team. And I think what really hurts is, I think it's the absence of, the real problem for us at the moment is the absence of supporters at Goodison Park, because there's no way 40,000 seat full Goodison Park allows that performance to happen. Fans would be infuriated.
It wouldn't have allowed the referee's performance to happen.
No,
because as soon as James Rodriguez was targeted once, twice, 3 times, the crowd would have been up and on it, and every time that player touched the ball, he would have been booed. The referee would have felt the pressure. So I think it's a good shout, Jay, with the arm missing the crowds, especially in games like yesterday.
What also hurts, obviously, if it wouldn't allow the referee to, make some of the decisions he made, but I feel like some of these players, and it's horrible to say, but these players are so weak-willed. These players think that because there aren't any supporters in the stadium that they can put in 50%. You're looking if it's like 30% what you saw there yesterday. These players think they can just knock the ball around the back, mess around, treat it like a training session just because there's no fans there to these games always show me the importance of Everton fans to the club.
Yeah.
I remember obviously there was the derby last season when we lost to the kids, and a few fans went and pulled up outside Finch Farm, and I'll be honest, were it not for the social distancing and the rules that are in place where we need to make sure we stay at home, I reckon that performance would have warranted that as well, because these players think that they can get away with dragging our club's name through the mud and making an embarrassment of the club just because there's no fans in the stadium, just because there's no one there to maybe give them a bit of stick and, knock them up a level. They shouldn't need the fans to do that.
Well, if you look back at some post-match interviews that Carlo done last season, I think it was very much we as fans could read between the lines. He was just saying, look, I'm stuck with this till July and I'll make it better. Yesterday, his post-match reaction, he attacked the spirits of some of those players. That's the angriest I've seen him. So I think he's now noticing what we're saying now, the mentality and the spirits. For him to come out and question his own player's spirit, I've never seen him do that. And that's the angriest he's been. He said last week, didn't he? He said the next 2 games being Leicester and Newcastle will show him all about the squad and where we can finish. And I think those players have just shown him that we probably aren't good enough to really make a go what would have been a dream season for us. Because why not dream big? It's if anyone can do a Leicester, it's this season. And I thought at the start of the season that the possibility was there. Up until a couple of weeks ago, I was thinking again, if injuries happen to other teams
I
and we
thought
stay amongst it,
maybe top
could we
four
have a
might have
dream
been a
scenario?
goer, but I don't know about the league. But
I don't know why. I don't. I'm not coming on saying that we could have won the league. I'm just saying that we could have been in the conversation if our form kept up. And I think he's thinking that. I think he's looking at it thinking, I'm a brilliant coach and I've got some brilliant players here. I just need to make it work up until May. But I think the last two games have shown him, and he's come up last night and said again that we're now looking to buy someone. He's been saying all month we're not looking at it. Yesterday it changed. It's if we can do something, we will. So I can see us being busy on Monday. I can see us bringing one or two in.
yeah, of course, the deadline day's come up very shortly, so we're going to have to move pretty fast if we are going to bring some players in. But it's I don't know whether it's a case of bringing in personnel or I just think there's some players in there who are like poison. Just people who think that they can just turn up and mess around.
I think he'll turn. I think he'll turn to as we've seen players that he knows already, players he's worked with in the past. I know Sammy Khedira's gone somewhere else today, so that's off the table.
To Berlin, yeah,
yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised to see players he's worked with in the past, even if they are a certain age that isn't really exciting for us. If you bring a 31-year-old striker in or a 32-year-old midfielder in for 18 months, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go back to characters he knows and characters he can rely on.
Yeah, people who will work hard and has a winning mentality. I mean, I think that some of these players are absolutely wretched. The mindsets of them. Gylfi Sigurdsson's an example of them. He's one of those players who thrives off having the fans in the ground because you need to kick up the backside. But
I'm lost with him, honestly, James. I'm absolutely lost with him. He doesn't calm me anymore. There was times that he did calm me, but he scored a goal. I think this season he scored at Sheffield United and he played very well at home to Arsenal where he was pressing and the fans were in. But to me, he is such a lost cause. He epitomises, and this might be harsh and this might get your channel some attacks, he epitomises everything that's wrong with the Everton team, and he has done for 4 or 5 years. To be a £45 million record signing and to have 4 good months in 4 years, it's nowhere near good enough for a team that haven't got a tenth of our history or our passion or our fan base. Never mind Everton Football Club. For me, the sooner we get him off the pitch, because we're having to rely on him. When Alan Odekore are injured or James Rodriguez are injured, he comes in because he's next down the line. We need to get so far away from having to rely on him quickly.
Absolutely. I think that's the thing. If he comes off the bench, he's probably useful, but you can't expect him to come in and from minute one and have that stomach for the fight because he doesn't have it. And
he runs into his men. He runs into men, so you can't pass it to him. I was watching him yesterday.
He always does that. It's an absolute disgrace.
I read a tweet during the game yesterday and someone said he was doing it and I had noticed it. So I made the point of actually watching him for 5 minutes during the game and it was exactly what he was doing. And I was thinking, why don't you come short and get it? And James Rodriguez, in the end, had to keep... There was a part of the game where James Rodriguez was in our own half, looking at how he can influence the game in a central position. You're thinking, you should have Gylfi Sigurdsson behind you, looking to get you in an advanced position to hurt Newcastle, but you're having to come back because the man you're next to isn't doing it.
Yeah, he can't be bothered. And there's loads of players. I mean, Richarlison's had a poor season, but he was poor as well. Throwing himself, and I know he does that sometimes, but it was he's just sulking at the moment, and you need a bit more will to win. You need to basically force your way into form, I think, and I just don't know if he's doing that at the moment.
No, I think the thing with Richarlison is he wants to play centrally. I think that's evident now. He's not happy on the left. He's not happy on the right. And this formation that we play, it is seeing him more wide than he has been. Duncan Ferguson put him in a 2. Carlo Ancelotti played last season at the end of last season as a 2, and he seemed very happy. We saw some good form from him. He doesn't seem happy to be playing out wide. He doesn't seem happy to be having to provide for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. There was a moment in the first half where he had a shot yesterday and Dominic Calvert-Lewin looked at him and said, I was in the 6-yard box. He's naturally not looking to be a provider. I think he wants to be the man, and there's nothing wrong with that. He's the kind of player that you could play as a 9 and get different things from him than you would from Calvert-Lewin, but I think his mentality is really affecting his performances. He wants to be the man scoring the goals, and because he's not, he can't seem to get over that, and he's struggling.
Yeah, I think he needs to, you know, that's not a good thing to be, though. And I know he is a really hard worker, but he needs to put the team first. We need players who put the team first.
There's times that he does. I mean, if you look back, he's always in our half fighting for us. You look back at the Thiago red card in the derby. That came from him defending Everton Football Club in our half and fighting and tackling.
Oh, definitely.
He's good at that, but I think he's got to have his name on the scoreboard every week. And if he doesn't, it affects him.
Yeah, I just think there's times where he could get into the opposition box, and then if there's another option, he'll go for the shot because he's desperate to score.
Yeah. Going back to the first game back in June, Merseyside derby, where he should have already squared it to Iwobi, but he had a shot, didn't he? Alisson, when we would have won that game if he'd have squared it to Iwobi. That's always been there with Richarlison, but the thing is, he's always got his 1 in 2 or his 1 in 3, or he scores a brace every month. He's not doing that now, and we're seeing the negatives of that. And I was saying before the start of the show, moving on to Leeds, I might surprise you at names I would not play on Wednesday. I would not play one of Richarlison or Dominic Calvert-Lewin on Wednesday. I would drop one of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of them. Things have to be done differently because we can't accept another one of those performances.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to play Richarlison as a number 9 on Wednesday, I'd be all for that and giving Dominic a little breather. Dominic's not in good form himself. He's struggling from not getting a service. I think Richarlison, you play Richarlison as a number 9, he'll create his own goals, whereas Dominic Calvert-Lewin relies on others to score his goals. If Dominic Calvert-Lewin hasn't got Rodriguez or Digne, I don't go into the game thinking he's going to score. Richarlison may give you something different. If you put one of those centrally, and if you put Iwobi and James Rodriguez either sides of them, that would suit me on Wednesday. I'm not saying it's long term. I'm saying it's maybe a game-to-game scenario where you look at changing things and adapting, but I don't think the pairing of Calvert-Lewin centrally and Richarlison wide of him is really working at the moment.
No. It's interesting, though, because it was working earlier in the season. Oh.
I think a lot of that was going back to my point where Richarlison wasn't really in a drought. I think he was playing really well, and it was always on his mind that he was going to get that goal. He was going to get that goal. I think he scored a couple of, was it Fleetwood we played early or Salford? I think he scored a couple in the cup, and that kept him taking over. So, but to go, he's only scored 1 in about 8 or 9 now, hasn't he? And that is weighing on his mind. You either have to now play him centrally and get him a goal, or you need to leave him out.
Yeah, it's a shame, but I think there's a lot more to it than, you've got those kind of issues. There's much more deep-rooted issues, I think, and that's the mental side of the game. It's the lack of leadership, and it's the it's the acceptance of mediocrity. And I know there's been a lot of clamour, hasn't there, in the recent weeks, that we haven't been taken seriously enough where our performances have warranted it. But this is why we're not taken seriously, is because of performances like this when we have a chance to move into 4th position.
Well, look at the media yesterday. They weren't surprised by that. If that was Chelsea, if that was Tottenham, if that was Liverpool or United or City, the media would have been surprised, and it would have been a big deal that Newcastle went there and won 2-0. The media weren't surprised. And you're right in what you're saying. A number of Evertonians have been saying that the media aren't taking it seriously. But you can see why, because they're expecting Everton to do this.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I understand if this was all like over a month ago, I'd have been more up in arms. But we've had the West Ham game where we've done the very same. And now we've done this, which is far worse, if you'd ask me. You could argue that we were unlucky to lose the West Ham game. There's nothing unlucky about that. That was just a disgrace of a performance.
It's massive. Wednesday becomes massive, doesn't it? Because if you don't get a positive result on Wednesday, it then becomes more of an issue. We're sort of reacting a day later, and we're emotional, and we're upset, and we've got every right to be. I think some Evertonians at the minute are more level-headed than probably me or you. They're looking at the bigger picture. I'm unfortunately not one of those people. I'll wear my emotions for a couple of days, but Wednesday for me,
certainly do.
Wednesday for me is huge. We've got to bounce back. We didn't beat Leicester on Wednesday, and if we'd have won yesterday, that would have looked a really good point. It now looks like, God, should we have held on? Is that now a bad point? So we've got to go to Leeds on Wednesday. I think he's going to make a number of changes on Wednesday. I can see the flat back four coming back in, and I can see centrally midfielders changing. And I honestly think he may, like I said, he drop one of the strikers and just put maybe James Rodriguez just more centrally off one of them and try and get Luca Di more up and down the left.
Yeah, I mean, we need to do something differently because that was just a farce. But anyway, we'll look into that in the next section. Anyway, we're going to be doing a preview for the Leeds game, so definitely be sure to check that out as well. But until now, just drop us a comment on this video. Let us know your opinions if you dare on that game, and give this video a like and subscribe for more content. And until next time, thank you for tuning in on the Toffee Blues.